I, Lily, a beautiful and sexy European-American wife, entered the art world and everything changed suddenly. Sunlight streams through the huge French windows and falls on the marble floor of the art gallery, creating patches of dappled light and shadow. People come and go in the gallery, the sound of their conversations mingling with the soft background music. I, Lily, am dressed in a black, form-fitting dress with a pair of black, stiletto heels. My long, golden curls are casually draped over my shoulders, the tips of my hair fluttering gently in the breeze. The dress I have carefully selected highlights my tall and curvy figure. The neckline is slightly open, revealing delicate collarbones and fair skin, as graceful as a swan. The length of the skirt just reaches above the knee, not too revealing but showing off my long legs. A simple diamond necklace glitters charmingly in the light, adding a touch of nobility to the overall look. My blue eyes are as deep as the Mediterranean Sea, with a hint of curiosity and expectation as I slowly pace through the exhibition hall. The colorful paintings on the walls attract my attention, and I stop to admire them from time to time, frowning slightly as I think. Just as I was deeply attracted by an abstract painting and immersed in the emotions and artistic conception conveyed by the painting, a slightly magnetic voice sounded in my ear. "Miss, you seem to be very interested in this painting?" I turned my head and saw a tall man with deep eyes, a high nose, short black hair neatly combed, and an artistic aura exuding from him. He was wearing a white shirt with the collar slightly open to show off his firm chest, a black casual suit jacket, black trousers, and black leather shoes. He looked elegant and charming. "Yes, this painting gives me a very special feeling," I replied with a smile, our eyes meeting. He introduced himself as Jack, a painter. Hearing his identity, a flash of surprise crossed my eyes. "So you're a painter, then what's your unique insight into this painting?" I asked curiously. Jack leaned slightly, looked at the painting carefully, then straightened up and began to explain to me. His voice was low and full of charm, and every sentence seemed to have a magic effect, drawing me in unconsciously. He analyzed the use of color and the outline of the lines in the painting, as well as the emotions and thoughts the painter wanted to express. I listened quietly, nodding from time to time, and was full of admiration for his talent. As he explained, I noticed a love and persistence for art in his eyes, and that light made my heart flutter. Our conversation became more and more in-depth, and we talked about other works of art and artistic styles and creative inspirations. I was surprised to discover that our views on art were very similar, as if we had found a soulmate. Before we knew it, we had been standing in front of the painting for a long time, while the crowds around us came and went, as if we were in a world of our own. "You have a unique understanding of art. It's rare to meet someone with such insight," Jack said, smiling at me, his eyes showing a hint of admiration. "I'm also very happy to have met you, and I've learned a lot from you," I said sincerely. At this time, the staff of the exhibition hall began to remind everyone that closing time was approaching. I looked at my watch and realized that time had passed so quickly. "I'm sorry, time really flies," I said with some reluctance. "That's okay, we'll have the opportunity to communicate in the future," Jack said, taking out a business card from his pocket and handing it to me. "This is my contact information. I hope to see you again." I took the business card and carefully put it in my handbag. "I'm also looking forward to our next meeting," I replied with a smile. As we walked out of the exhibition hall, it had gradually grown dark outside. I stood at the entrance, watching Jack disappear into the crowd, and an inexplicable sense of anticipation welled up in my heart. I knew that from this moment on, my life might change because of this man. And I didn't seem to resist this change, but instead, I was full of anticipation for the future. When I got home, my husband David had already prepared dinner. He saw me coming and came up to me with a smile. "Honey, how was your day?" "It was good. I went to an art exhibition and saw a lot of great works," I replied, but my mind was still thinking about Jack. "That's good. Sit down and eat," David said, pulling out a chair for me. During dinner, I listened absent-mindedly to David's account of his day at work, but Jack's image kept popping up in my mind, along with this scene of us talking. I knew that I was already looking forward to our next encounter, and this feeling made me feel both excited and nervous. In the following days, I kept taking out Jack's business card from time to time, looking at the contact information on it, and wondering whether or not to give him a call. In the end, curiosity and anticipation overcame my hesitation, and I picked up the phone and dialed Jack's number. After ringing a few times, the phone finally connected. "Hello, who is this?" Jack's voice came from the other end of the line. "Hello, Jack, I'm Lily. We met at the art exhibition," I said a little nervously. "Oh, Lily, I remember you. I'm glad to hear from you." Jack's voice carried a hint of surprise. We talked for a long time on the phone, from art to life, from hobbies to future plans. Unconsciously, an hour passed, but I didn't notice the passage of time at all. "Lily, there's an art party at the weekend. Are you interested in going?" Jack suddenly asked. "Really?" "I'm very interested and I'd love to go," I replied excitedly. "That's great. I'll pick you up then," Jack said. "Okay, thank you, Jack," I said happily. After hanging up the phone, I excitedly spun around in my room several times. I began to look forward to the art party that weekend, to seeing Jack again, and to having more exchanges and contact with him in an artistic atmosphere. I knew that my life, thanks to Jack's appearance, was no longer calm. Time passed unknowingly, and my time with Jack increased day by day, and our relationship became more and more intimate. It was like two parallel trajectories that gradually began to converge and merge. Ever since that unforgettable encounter at the art exhibition, I have been caught up in an indescribable emotional whirlpool. I have been meeting Jack frequently, in secret from my husband David. Every time I meet Jack, I dress up as if I were going to an important fateful appointment. I spend a lot of time choosing the right clothes, carefully matching the jewelry, and carefully applying makeup just to show myself at my best in front of him. We often spent long hours in the art studio. Jack's studio was filled with the unique artistic smell of paint and turpentine. The way he concentrated on his painting was as charming as a sculpture. His eyes were fixed on the canvas, and the paintbrush in his hand was wielded recklessly, as if each stroke carried life and emotion. His brows would sometimes furrow and sometimes stretch, as if he were having a silent dialogue with the image on the canvas. Whenever I saw him like this, my heart would beat faster involuntarily, as if an invisible hand were gently plucking at my heartstrings. One time, Jack was working on a large oil painting depicting a mysterious forest scene. I sat quietly in a chair nearby, silently watching him. The sun shone through the gaps in the windows and fell on him, casting a golden glow over his silhouette. His hair shimmered with an inky luster in the sunlight, and the lines on his face looked particularly distinct. As I watched him, a strong urge welled up in my heart, an urge to enter his world and understand every thought in his heart. "Lily, what do you think of the colors here?" Jack suddenly stopped painting and turned to me. I stood up and walked over to him, carefully examining the canvas. "I think the green here could be a little darker, which would better express the mystery and depth of the forest," I said, pointing to a patch of trees on the canvas. Jack nodded slightly, picked up his paintbrush, and made the changes I suggested. Watching him carefully listen to my advice and incorporate my ideas into his painting, I felt a small sense of accomplishment. As I spent more time with Jack, I found myself relying on him more and more. We would discuss works of art together and share our creative inspirations. We would also stroll through the streets and alleys together, feeling the pulse and breath of the city. Our conversations gradually extended from art to all aspects of life, and we would pour out our troubles and dreams to each other, as if the other was the person in the world who understood us best. However, while enjoying the sweet time with Jack, my heart was filled with tension and unease. I knew that I had crossed the moral line and betrayed my husband David. Every time I returned home and saw David's busy figure, a deep sense of guilt would well up in my heart. David is still busy at work, leaving early in the morning and returning late at night, working hard for the family. He doesn't notice my changes and still cares for and loves me as usual. On his way home from work, he buys my favorite desserts for me. When I'm sick, he takes meticulous care of me. Whenever I see his tired eyes and warm smile, I feel unbearable pain and struggle within. One night, David came home late from work. I sat on the sofa in the living room, anxiously waiting for him. When he opened the door and saw that I was still waiting for him, a hint of surprise appeared on his face. "Honey, why aren't you asleep?" He came over and kissed my forehead gently. "I was waiting for you." "You work hard," I said, but I was filled with guilt. "It's okay. Everything is worth it for our family," David said with a smile. At that moment, I looked at David and a strong urge suddenly welled up in my heart to tell him everything. But when I saw his tired eyes and loving smile, I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue. I knew that once I told the truth, our marriage might be in danger of collapsing. In this state of conflict, I continued to meet Jack while keeping it a secret from David. I was on the edge of this dangerous relationship, not knowing which way to turn. I couldn't let go of my feelings for Jack, but I couldn't face betraying David either. After every encounter with Jack, I would secretly swear to myself that it would be the last time, but when he asked me out again, I couldn't say no. As time passed, Jack and I grew closer, and we even started to plan for the future. Jack would describe his dreams to me. He said he wanted to hold a major art exhibition of his own so that the world could see his work. He also said he hoped I would always be by his side so that we could share the joy of his success together. As I listened to him, my heart was filled with hope and anticipation, but also a sense of fear. I didn't know what our future would hold, and I didn't know how I would face David. These emotions churned within me like a storm about to break. I knew I had to make a decision soon, otherwise I would be plunged into even deeper pain and trouble. But every time I tried to make a decision, the emotions in my heart became a tangled mess, and I couldn't sort them out. I was torn between Jack and David, and I didn't know where my future really lay. As the days passed, I was torn between Jack and David, and the pressure inside me was like a heavy mountain, suffocating me. I tried to maintain a calm appearance, but in the end, the truth could not be hidden. David sensed my unusual behavior. It was an ordinary night. I returned home after my date with Jack as usual. When I opened the door, the lights in the house were a little dim. David was sitting on the sofa, his figure stretched long by the light, looking a little lonely. He didn't get up to greet me as usual, but sat quietly, his eyes revealing a seriousness I had never seen before. "Lily, what's wrong with you lately?" David's voice was low and trembled slightly, breaking the silence in the room. My heart tightened, and I almost dropped the keys in my hand. I forced myself to remain calm and forced a smile, saying, "What are you talking about? What could possibly be wrong with me?" David slowly got up and walked towards me step by step. Each step felt like it was stepping on my heart. He stood in front of me, staring straight into my eyes, his eyes full of disappointment and anger. "Stop lying to me, Lily. You've been distracted lately. You often come home late, and you're getting cold towards me. Do you think I can't tell?" His voice raised a little, with an interrogative tone. I felt a little guilty under his gaze and lowered my head, afraid to make eye contact. "David, I've just been really into art lately, and I've been attending some events, so I've been coming home late," I tried to explain, but even I felt that these words were feeble. "Art? You expect me to believe that? You think I'm an idiot?" David's voice carried a hint of mockery. "Lily, we've been married for so many years. Why are you doing this to me?" I looked up at David's angry and sad face, and a sharp pain shot through my heart. I wanted to hug him and tell him that I still loved him, but my body felt as if it were nailed to the ground and I couldn't move. "David, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just met some people in the art world who resonate with me, and we have a lot of exchanges." "Resonance? What kind of resonance requires you to hide it from me and go on frequent dates with other people?" David's voice was a little choked up. "Lily, what happened to our marriage? Don't you have any lingering feelings?" Hearing his words, I couldn't help but shed tears. "David, of course I miss our marriage and I love you. But after I met Jack, I found that something inside me has changed and I can't help it." I finally told the truth. After I finished, I felt a sense of relief, but at the same time, I was even more afraid. I didn't know how David would react. David's body trembled slightly, as if he had been struck by my words. He was silent for a long time, then let out a deep sigh. Lily, I always thought our marriage was happy. I worked hard to give you a good life. I never expected that you would have someone else on the side. From then on, our lives completely changed. What had once been a warm home became cold and oppressive. We began to argue frequently, and each argument was like a sharp knife, carving deep wounds in our relationship. Can't you just cut off contact with Jack? We can go back to the way things were, David often implored me. But I can't. Jack and I have a real relationship. I can't just give him up, I stubbornly replied. What about our marriage? Are you just going to give up so easily? David's voice was full of despair. I don't know, I'm really confused right now, I responded bitterly. In the midst of our repeated arguments, the distance between us grew ever wider. Once, we were so close and trusted each other, but now we are like two strangers, even a little hostile. The atmosphere at home became extremely tense. Every time I returned home, I felt extremely oppressed, as if I had walked into a cage. I was torn between Jack and David, and I didn't know what to do. I was deeply attracted to Jack, and his talent and passion were overwhelming. But I also had feelings for David, and we had been through so much together. He was my husband, the person I had vowed to spend my life with. Sometimes, late at night, I would sit alone at the window, looking out at the night sky, silently weeping. I think of the sweet times we had, the days we spent traveling together, the nights we spent snuggled up close to each other, and my heart is filled with remorse and pain. I regret my impulsiveness and selfishness. Why did I let myself get into such a predicament and hurt the two people who love me? Jack, on the other hand, doesn't seem to notice my inner pain. He is still immersed in our love and planning our future. He doesn't know that I am already on the verge of being torn apart between him and David. Once, Jack asked me out. He excitedly told me that he was preparing an art exhibition and hoped that I could help him with it. I looked at his hopeful eyes, but my heart was full of conflict. On the one hand, I wanted to help him and support his dream, but on the other hand, I was worried that this would make David even more sad and completely break up our marriage. Lily, what's wrong? You don't seem very happy, Jack asked, sensing my unease. Nothing. I'm just a little distracted by some family matters lately, I said, forcing a smile and not wanting him to know about the conflict between David and me. Don't worry too much. Everything will be fine, Jack reassured me, and then started rambling about his plans for the art exhibition. I listened quietly, but my mind was on David. I knew I had to make a decision soon, or I would lose the two most important people in my life. But this decision was really hard for me. I was sinking deeper and deeper into the cracks in my marriage, and the future became a blur. During this period of time, when arguments with David became more frequent and my relationship with Jack became more and more stuck, my life seemed to have fallen into an endless dark abyss with no way out. Every night, I tossed and turned in pain and confusion, unable to sleep. However, fate always seems to play tricks on people. Just when I thought I was about to lose David and throw myself into Jack's arms, following him in pursuit of an artistic life that seemed so tempting, an unexpected piece of news came like a bolt from the blue. It was a sunny afternoon, and Jack asked me to meet him at the cafe we often went to. I dressed up as usual, full of anticipation, imagining that we might be able to plan our future together and looking forward to the sweet life that was about to begin. When I walked into the cafe, I saw Jack sitting by the window. His eyes were a little complicated, as if he were hesitating about something. I smiled and walked over to sit opposite him. Jack, you look a little different today. Is there something special you want to tell me? I asked softly, reaching out to take his hand. Jack took a deep breath and said slowly, Lily, I'm going to Paris. His voice was very quiet, but it sounded like a bolt of thunder to me. Going to Paris? Why? I stared at him in disbelief, my heart filled with a strong sense of unease. Lily, you know, Paris is the mecca of art, where there are more opportunities and a broader stage. I have always dreamed of going there to pursue higher artistic achievements. Jack's eyes revealed a trace of longing and determination. I froze, not knowing what to say for a moment. I had never thought that he would suddenly propose to leave and to go to such a distant place. What about us? What about us? I finally came back to my senses and asked anxiously. Jack looked at me, a flash of guilt in his eyes. Lily, I want you to come to Paris with me. We can start a new life there and pursue our artistic dreams together. Hearing his words, I felt a mixture of emotions. Going to Paris was the dream of many artists, and living with Jack in that city full of artistic atmosphere was also a scene I had fantasized about countless times. But at the moment, I hesitated. I thought of David and his tired but still loving gaze. Although we had been arguing a lot these days, I could feel that his love for me had never changed. He had sacrificed so much for our family and for me, and I had hurt him so selfishly. Jack, I need time to think about it, I said with difficulty, afraid to look Jack in the eye. A flash of disappointment crossed Jack's face, but he nodded. Okay, Lily, I understand. But time is running out. I hope you can give me an answer soon. After leaving the cafe, I walked aimlessly down the street. The sun was still shining brightly, but my mood was like a sky covered in dark clouds, oppressive and heavy. I thought back to the bits and pieces of my time with David, the good times we spent together, flashing through my mind like scenes from a movie. We once walked together on the beach, watched the sunset, and made a lifelong commitment. We once went to home improvement stores all over the city to decorate our home, exhausted but full of happiness. We once took care of each other when we were sick, giving each other warmth and care. Jack, although he brought me passion and romance and made me feel a different kind of love, when faced with his decision to go to Paris, I suddenly realized that my feelings for him were not as strong as I had thought. I returned home, and David was in the living room. When he saw me come in, a look of expectation flashed in his eyes, as if he wanted to say something, but he held back. I looked at him, and the feeling of guilt in my heart grew stronger. David, Jack is going to Paris, and he wants me to go with him, I said, gathering my courage. David's body trembled slightly, and a flash of pain crossed his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. So what do you think? His voice was calm, but I could feel the turmoil within him. I don't know. I'm so confused right now, I don't know what to choose. I lowered my head, afraid to look him in the eye. David walked over to me and gently took my hand. Lily, I know there have been a lot of problems between us recently, but my love for you has never changed. I don't want to lose you. If you really love Jack and want to pursue your artistic dreams with him, I will respect your choice. Hearing his words, I couldn't hold back my tears. I looked at him, my heart filled with emotion and remorse. David, I'm sorry. I know I've done a lot of wrong and I've hurt you. It's okay, Lily. As long as you can find true happiness, I'll be satisfied. David's voice was a little choked. I fell into a deeper state of confusion. On the one hand, there was my once beloved husband, who tolerated and understood me and was willing to do anything for me. On the other hand, there was my once thought soulmate, who brought me passion and artistic inspiration and invited me to pursue our dreams together. This unexpected turn of events has made my future even more confusing. I don't know which way to go, and I can only continue to wander in pain and struggle. Since Jack told me he was going to Paris and hoped I could go with him, my life has been in an unprecedented state of chaos and confusion. Every day, I feel like I'm being weighed on the scales of fate, and the struggle within me is like raging waves that never subside for a moment. I began to spend many long, silent hours alone, often sitting alone in the corner of the living room, the air around me seeming to freeze, while my inner thoughts continued to churn. I closed my eyes and tried to calm myself, but memories of David's past would flood back to me like a tidal wave. I remember when we first got married, life was simple but full of sweetness. On weekend mornings, we would hold hands and go to the market together to choose fresh ingredients. Then we would go home, teasing each other about our cooking skills while working together to prepare a sumptuous lunch. In the afternoon sunshine streaming through the windows, we would snuggle up on the sofa and share our dreams and hopes for the future. Those days, every smile and every hug were full of deep love, and they are the most precious memories of my life. Another time, I was sick and hospitalized, and David put down all the work he was doing and stayed by my bedside day and night. His eyes were full of worry and pain, and he took care of me with meticulous attention, bringing me tea and water and taking care of my diet and daily life. At my most vulnerable time, he was the solid support that gave me a sense of the warmth and strength of love. Jack, on the other hand, appeared like a sudden storm, disrupting my otherwise peaceful life. His talent and passion were like shining stars that instantly captivated me. We spoke freely about the world of art, and every exchange made me feel as if my soul had been elevated. With him, I experienced an unprecedented passion and romance, as if I had rediscovered the joy and meaning of life. But now, as Jack is about to leave, I have begun to re-examine my feelings for him. I have gradually realized that perhaps my feelings for him are more of an adoration of art and a pursuit of novelty. In the process of being with him, I have neglected David's feelings and the deep emotions accumulated over the years of our marriage. I remember one time when Jack didn't contact me for several days because he was busy with his work. I felt an unprecedented sense of anxiety and unease while waiting, but when I tried to contact him, he always hung up the phone hastily, saying that he was in the crucial moment of creation. At that moment, a sense of loss and confusion welled up in my heart, and I began to doubt whether our relationship was really as strong as I thought. David, despite the huge rift between us over Jack, never gave up on our marriage. His eyes were full of pain and disappointment, but that glimmer of love for me never disappeared. His tolerance and understanding made me realize more deeply my own mistakes. Countless sleepless nights, I asked myself, what do I really want? To go to Paris with Jack and pursue that seemingly beautiful artistic love, or to go back to David and regain our former happiness? I tried to imagine my life with Jack in Paris. We might stroll through the artistic streets, admiring the exquisite paintings and sculptures. We would attend various art exhibitions and parties, and interact with artists from all over the world. But at the same time, I also thought about the difficulties I might face in a foreign country, the language barrier, cultural differences, and the pressure of life. And I wasn't sure whether Jack's feelings for me could withstand the test of time and reality. When I imagined returning to David, a feeling of warmth and relief welled up in my heart. I could return to that familiar home and work with David to repair our marriage. Together, we could repair the damage caused by my mistakes and rebuild our trust. We could spend simple but happy days together, facing the joys and sorrows of life together. This decision is really difficult. I feel like a ship without a compass, unable to find a way forward in the vast ocean. Every choice is fraught with uncertainty, and every choice may change my life forever. I began to pour out my troubles to my friends, hoping they could give me some advice. Some friends said that I should bravely pursue my love and not let myself have any regrets. Others advised me to cherish the person in front of me, because after all, David is the one who truly loves me and is willing to do anything for me. My friends' opinions were all over the place, which made my heart even more confused. As the days passed, Jack's departure became increasingly imminent. I spent every day in pain and confusion, and the torment inside me made me look haggard. I knew that I couldn't continue to be so indecisive anymore, and that I had to make a decision as soon as possible. Finally, on a quiet evening, I sat alone by the window, looking at the twinkling stars in the night sky, and an answer gradually came to my heart. I decided to listen to the most authentic voice in my heart. That voice told me that I could no longer get lost, that I had to take responsibility for my future and for my own happiness. And my happiness might be with David, who had always silently protected me. After a long and painful internal struggle, I finally made a decision and chose to go back to David's side. This decision was a difficult self-redemption for me, as well as a brave confrontation with past mistakes. It was an afternoon with not too dazzling sunshine, with a few light clouds in the sky. Just like my mood, although there was some gloom, there was also a sense of relief. I sat on the sofa in the living room, waiting for David to come home from work. With each passing second, my heart beat faster and faster, and I was both looking forward to and dreading seeing his eyes. When the sound of the key turning in the lock came, my body trembled slightly. David walked in the door and saw me sitting there. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes, but it quickly returned to calm. He gently set down his briefcase and walked over to sit next to me. "David, I want to tell you something," I said, taking a deep breath and gathering my courage. He looked at me with a hint of expectation in his eyes. "Okay, go ahead. I'm listening." I slowly opened my mouth and told him everything about me and Jack, from meeting and getting to know each other to the final decision, without reservation. I told him how my feelings for Jack first arose, the sweet times I spent with Jack, and the internal struggles and pain I experienced in this relationship. I also honestly admitted my mistakes, admitting that my selfishness and impulsiveness hurt him. "David, I know I've done unforgivable things. I've betrayed you and our marriage," I said, my voice a little choked up. "But I really don't want to lose you. I've come to realize that the person I've always loved is you." The feelings I had with Jack were more curiosity about something new and an admiration for the arts. That wasn't true love. David listened quietly, his expression not changing much, but I could see a flash of pain in his eyes. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "Lily, do you know? When I found out about you and Jack, my heart was broken. I once trusted you so much, and we have been through so many days together. I thought our relationship was unbreakable." I lowered my head, tears streaming down my face. "I know I was wrong, David. Can you forgive me?" David sighed softly, reached out his hand, and gently wiped away my tears. "Lily, I was in pain too, but my love for you made me unable to give up our marriage easily. I am willing to give us another chance. As long as you can sincerely come back to me, we will work hard together and start again." Hearing his words, a warm current surged through my heart, and I hugged him tightly. "Thank you, David. I will definitely cherish this opportunity and won't let you down again." Since then, we have embarked on a difficult journey of repair. We have taken marriage counseling courses together to learn how to better communicate and understand each other. We also go to places we have been to together on weekends to reminisce about the good times and try to regain the former rapport and trust. I also completely cut off contact with Jack and deleted his contact information from my life. I no longer indulged in the illusory emotions of the art world, but instead focused on the art that I truly loved. I began to calm my mind in my studio and express my inner emotions and perceptions of life with my paintbrush. In the process, the relationship between David and I gradually improved. We no longer argued as we used to, but learned to listen and be tolerant. We would share each other's joys and sorrows and face the difficulties and challenges in life together. Once, I hit a creative block while working on a painting, and no matter how hard I tried, I was not satisfied with the result. I felt very frustrated and even began to doubt my abilities. David saw how anxious I was and gently walked over to me, putting his arms around me. "Lily, don't worry. Everyone has difficult times. You have to believe in your abilities. Your paintings have always been very moving," he said gently. With his encouragement, I picked up my paintbrush again. After some hard work, I finally finished the painting, and the result was even better than I had imagined. At that moment, I deeply felt how important David's support and encouragement were to me. As time passed, our marriage gradually returned to its former warmth. Our life was simple, but full of happiness. I also made some small achievements in artistic creation, and my works began to be exhibited in small exhibitions, receiving recognition and appreciation from some people. On a sunny day, we went together to a friend's wedding. Looking at the happy smiles of the newlyweds, David and I smiled at each other. We both knew that we had been through so many storms, but in the end we came together and cherished each other even more. "David, thank you for your continued tolerance and love," I said softly. David shook my hand tightly. "Lily, we have to stay this happy forever." At that moment, I knew that we had emerged from the shadows of the past and ushered in a new life that was ours alone. Our marriage is like a carefully restored painting. Although there were once cracks, with our efforts, it has become more complete and beautiful. I also believe that in the days to come, we will create more beautiful memories together and walk through every stage of life hand in hand.